Hey, all of my good friends from the Ag Society, how are you today? What are we talking about? We're talking about the 3 reasons why volunteers don't perform. Now, in a previous video, we discussed group poor performance. What happens when everybody's not doing it right? And we talked that through. Now we look at the other side of the flow chart, and we're discussing why an individual is not performing and what to do about it. Now, let's back up just a second. We want to first set ourselves up for success when it comes to putting people in the right position to succeed. And that's why we do that initial survey. And there's an example of that survey here on the webpage to try to better understand their expectations from us or what they're looking for from the standpoint of meaning and purpose. So we want to job carve them into the right job. Remember what job carving means. Job carving means that I let you pick what you want to do. And I let you pick it based on interest or energy or skill set or something that you would enjoy. So I let you carve your job within our organization to whatever degree possible to mitigate the risk that there's going to be some challenges. But now here we are, challenge. The volunteer's performance is poor. Now what do I do? Step number 1, you've got to be a good doctor. In other words, I'm approaching this not from a personal standpoint. I can't believe they're not doing it. It's a personal affront to me. No. Instead, I want to diagnose the issue, get to the root cause, and then take corrective measures from there, just like a good doctor. The good doctor doesn't treat the symptom. The good doctor looks for the cause of the disease. And my assertion that day in Camrose, and my assertion right now is this, that there are 3 root causes to volunteer poor performance. 1, they don't know the expectations. 2, they don't have the tools, the training, or the physical tools. Tools being they don't have the wherewithal within them, they don't have the training, or they don't have the actual tools to do the job. Or 3, they think they have a choice. There's some things that volunteers have choices in, some things they don't. So the first step is, I'm a doctor, don't take it personal. All I'm trying to figure out is why this person isn't doing what we need them to do. Step number 1, I'm going to go after and check and see if it's expectations. Now, how would I check that? I would check that by having the chat. Remember, the chat is a discovery technique, verbal discovery technique, where I ask open-ended questions and do 80% of the listening, 20% of the talking. I'm going to ask questions to figure out if they know the expectations, which could be just as simple as this. Hey, explain to me how you think this is supposed to roll. Do not do this. Don't say, hey, do you understand the expectations? Do you understand how this works? Yes, I do. Which really means I have no idea. I'll figure it out when you leave. Don't do that. So I'm asking the open-ended questions so I can hear their explanation of what is expected and how it's supposed to be done. You will find out in a minute and a half, max, if they know the expectations, because you've asked open-ended questions that might sound something like this. So explain to me, or give me some insight on how you think it's supposed to be done. Or from your perspective, how is this supposed to happen? It's as simple as that, and you'll know right away. Now, what if it's expectations? It's clear they don't know the expectation. They don't know what I expect. Then you're going to review the expectations with them. Well, typically, here's how we would like it to be done. Over the last 5 years, we found that this is the best methodology. And then they say, oh, okay, I can do that. It's very simple. Then what do? Then, as the flow chart indicates, I'm going to follow up. That's not the end. The end is the follow-up. I come back and check. They're doing it right. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I appreciate you following the expectations, whatever. Great job. Performance corrected. But what happens if you come back and check and they're still doing it wrong? Well, what do you know? You know it wasn't expectations. So it can only be one of 2 things. They don't have the training, the tools, the whatever. So as the good doctor, what diagnostic technique am I going to utilize to identify training tools, whatever? Observation. I'm going to see them do it. I'm going to watch them. Oh, I can't hover over them. No, you're going to do it along with them. Hey, your role is to help them have a positive experience. You read their survey. You know why they're here and what they're hoping to achieve for themselves. They don't want it to be a negative experience either. So you're going to get in there and do it with them. And you're going to observe with your eyes, with your ears, and with your intuition. And again, you'll find out real quick if they know how to do it. Now, what you've then, the next step in that is, do they not know how to do it because you haven't trained them the proper way? Do they not know how to do it because they just don't have the ability? Or because you gave them the wrong tool to do it with? Again, through observation, you'll be able to diagnose that and take corrective measure. Oh, it's just that they don't know. Let me show you. Let me show you a better way to do that. Let me train you. Or here, let me give you these physical tools. That will make it easier. You're trying to drive that nail in with the heel of your hand. That probably hurts a little bit. Here, let me borrow, you can borrow my hammer. Or my nail gun. Even better. Unless, of course, they don't know how to use that, and then someone gets a nail in the side of their head. Not good. That kind of screws up the whole liability thing. Don't do that. What do we do then? We either retrain or we provide them the tools. Now, what if they just don't have the ability? They're the wrong person for the job. Well, then you got to talk about that. Are you having a positive experience? Do you really, really like this? No, I hate this. Is there something else I can do? Absolutely. We can find you something else to do. Or, I really, really love this. And that's where we have to have that kind of courageous conversation. You know, it's just not working out. But if somebody really, really wants to do something and you'll provide them the training and they know the expectation, eventually they're going to be able to do it adequately. Eventually, for most cases. Okay, expectation, it wasn't that. Then you did the retraining and you go back and you follow up. And when you follow up, you find they're still not doing it right. Or you find they're doing it great. If they're doing it great, we celebrate. Great job. If they're not doing it well, then it can only be one thing. As a good doctor, it can only be one thing. The root cause is they're choosing not to. But notice what I've done. I've had a personal interaction with them to check expectations. I've had a personal interaction with them to see if they need retraining or they have the tools. I've eliminated those two things. It can only be that they have a choice. Now that sounds like they're a resistor or that it's negative. They just might not be clear on what choice means. I still don't understand. Well, I used the example when we were together in Canmore when I said, hey, the way that we count the money in the canteen, when we close down the canteen, there's no choice in that. No choice whatsoever in that. But they may be choosing to do it another way. And so somehow they weren't clear on what they have a choice in and what they don't. Now, one of the challenges when you have that they think they have a choice conversation is it can be contentious. Because this is probably the third time you're talking to them about this performance thing. So when I prepare for that conversation, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going back to that survey to see why are they here anyways? What were they hoping to gain? Then I'm saying to myself and other board members, I'm saying, does anybody know Joe? Because he's just not doing what we need him to do. And I think it might be a contentious conversation. So it'd be better if somebody that knew Joe had that conversation, not me who doesn't know him. If I know Joe, then I'm asking the following questions. What kind of communication style does Joe use? Fact-based, emotion-based, value-based, belief-based? Well, we talked about those before. When would be the best time to talk to Joe? Where would be the best time to talk to Joe? Because I have a relationship with Joe or I know him, I can think those things through to set myself up for some level of success. I don't know Joe. That's why I'm asking who else might know him to answer those questions for me. I want to set myself up for success. I don't want to lose this volunteer if I don't have to. So now the time comes. I've thought through how he communicates. I've thought through the best place, the best time, whatever. and I sit down with Joe. Joe, as you know, we've talked about expectations. You explained it to me. And it seems like you understand what we expect. Joe, then we retrained you on it. And I watched you and you were doing it. But Joe, the money still isn't getting counted properly in the canteen when we shut it down on Saturday night. And for the last 5 Saturdays, when you have been there, we've been short or we've been over, one or the other. We've been over or we've been short. Either way, bad. The cash register didn't match. The money we had, good or bad, over, under, it didn't matter. It didn't match. Something's wrong. Are you accusing me of stealing the money? No, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying it's not that, it doesn't match up. We got to figure out what's going on. I know you know the expectations. You explained it to me. I watched you do it when I'm there. But then when I'm not, it doesn't go well. It doesn't go well. What do you think the cause is, Joe? What am I trying to identify? I'm trying to identify the attitudinal barrier that might be preventing Joe from doing it the way we want. He's choosing not to follow our process and protocol. Why? He might look back at me and say, I don't like it. It's too cumbersome, too hard. Doesn't need to have all those steps. Well, Joe, unfortunately, we have all those steps for a reason. So let me be clear. That's the way we're going to do it. I can't tell a volunteer that. Well, yeah, you can. You don't have to be a jerk about it. Remember, it doesn't have to be personal. You just have to say, that's the way we do it. So what I would normally say then is to Joe is, Joe, if you have some ideas of how we could do it differently, I'd love to entertain those. But until such time as we establish that as the policy, let's keep following the policy so that we're consistent in the way we do things. Joe, can I count on you to follow that policy? Yes, you can. No, I can't. What if it's, yes, I can? Perfect. What can I do to help you with that, Joe? So first, I establish the preferred behavior. Second, I establish the time frame that we're going to do the preferred behavior. Third, I establish what support Joe might need from me to acquire the preferred behavior or execute the preferred behavior. Then, finally, I talk about the consequences of the preferred behavior not being utilized. Again, I don't have to be a jerk. I just say, you know what, man? We can't keep being short. If we continue to be short, I got to find another place for you to be a part of the team and be involved. We want you here, Joe. Don't get me wrong. But we got to follow this protocol. We got to follow this procedure. And I would love to sit down with you at another time and talk about maybe another way that we could do this to be more efficient and more effective. Now let's say Joe goes back, had the chat, and he's short again. Then he can't do it anymore. And we already talked about that. It's a very linear and reasonable way. First, expectations. Second, tools or training. Third, choice. Now, I would suggest to you, it's very rarely the latter. It's usually the former. It's either expectations or training or tools. You go back and you look and you diagnose poor performance, you're going to find it's one of those two things in most instances. Let me know if you have any questions. Certainly it's something that has to be practiced and walked through, but when you treat people with dignity and respect, it works well. That's why I've added that always and never sheet. Always and never. Now it's from the standpoint of an employee, but you might as well just substitute volunteer for the word employee. Always and never. You read those always and nevers for the next 5 days, it'll get ingrained in you, and that's the best way to treat volunteers with dignity and respect when coaching poor performance. Thank you for your time. Take care.